Hi viewers, and welcome to another episode of On the Farm, where we are vocal about everything local. I am Shakima Hanley. This episode will be an informative and an educational episode where we'll be speaking about the rainy season and things farmers need to put into place during this time of the season, whether it be preventive measures, protective measures, materials, equipment that is needed to have at hand during this time in the event of anything. But before we get into it, we take a short break and be right back after this.
8 billion people, one agri-food system. Conflict, climate change, slowdowns and downturns, inequality, rising food prices are denying progress to many, limiting progress for us all. What affects one impacts many. Sustainability starts with equal opportunity. Let's build a world with more and good quality food for all. Leave no one behind.
Welcome back, viewers. Joining me, I have a representative from the Department of Agriculture. And firstly, I'm going to ask her to introduce herself.
Hello everyone, my name is Heidi Tyson and Senior Agricultural Officer at the Department of Agriculture.
Okay, Heidi, thank you for joining us on the farm today. We're going to have a little discussion. We know the rainy season is upon us, and I want you to tell the viewers and also farmers who are watching, what are some of the preventative measures that they can put in place for their crops and production during this season?
Firstly, I should say the most important is to make sure you're abreast with the weather forecast, to make sure you know if there's any incoming rain or storm that is approaching, because if you decide to plant during that time, you have to make sure to take into consideration that your seedlings and your seeds will be washed away. Also, if you plant during a wet season, when the soil is wet, that can cause compaction of the soil, which leads to lack of oxygen for the establishment of proper roots. Another preventative measure that you should take into consideration is to have proper drainage. This is important because once there is bad drainage, this can cause waterlogs in the bed. This decreases the uptake of oxygen into the soil for the roots, and this will also drown your plants.
Heavy rainfall can cause basically flooding in the field, and as you said, if you have plants planted in the area, things can happen. Do diseases occur as well in this particular setting?
Of course. The plants are always susceptible to disease and fungus when there is a lot of moisture. So farmers should also take into consideration after heavy rainfall to do regular monitoring and pruning of the crops. And also if you see any leaves that have any ill health, to cut them off immediately so there isn't any spread of any disease.
In terms of things that farmers should have close by as some sort of counteracting mechanism, equipment as a preventative after the storm, what can they use?
Firstly, we should talk about cultural practices. So you should firstly have a cutlass or machete or weed whacker to make sure you can eliminate some of the weeds. Also, to make sure you have all of your chemicals, your pesticides, your herbicides in stock, to make sure that you can get rid of any disease that has shown after the rainy season, that has shown on the crops after the rainy season.
And you know, once you see rain, we see worms. So that's a big factor as well that farmers should consider.
I should also add that it's important to apply mulch to your soil, because the heavy rainfall that can cause like a major impact when it hits the soil. So it's always good to add some mulch to your soil, so when the impact is not that heavy and some of the moisture can be soaked into the mulch material that is applied.
Okay. All right, Ms. Tyson, thank you so very much for joining me, and do continue to enjoy.
Thank you.
All right.
Fresh local fruit and vegetables produced for our nourishment. Buy local, eat local.
Joining me also is another individual from the Department of Agriculture who is more specialized in diseases, insect entomology, and I'm going to first ask him to introduce himself.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Quincy Bat, Plant Health and Plant Quarantine Officer.
Quincy, welcome to On the Farm. Okay, so just to continue on with the conversation before. We are discussing rainy season, things that farmers should expect during the season. And I know you're specialized in diseases and also insects. So tell us, what are some of the things that farmers should look out for during this time of the season?
A few things that farmers should be looking out for the seasons are weeds. Weeds are we have a good environment for them, and they will spread very fast. Weeds, they compete for nutrients, space, and they harbor other pests and diseases. So farmers need to be very on top of the weeds. Okay. Also, insects. And insects, you have chewing insects such as worms, sucking and rasping insects such as mites and thrips.
What about diseases? Is there any type of disease that is prone to show themselves during this time?
Yes, so we have the fungal diseases such as powdery mildews. We have bacterial diseases such as bacterial wilts. We also have viruses that's very prognostic of these season.
Okay, let's start with diseases. What are some chemicals, or whether it's organic, synthetic, or systematic chemicals that farmers can use when they identify some sort of diseases on their crops?
Yes, once they identify the diseases, they can come to the Lawrence and Parry farming depot, and there are a wide variety of fungicides they can use. We have Phyton 27 that is good for damping off of seedlings, that is very prognostic to in the wet season. Also, we have anthracnose. It can help alleviate anthracnose as well. And we also have Copper Plus. That's a copper-based fungicide that works for a wide range of diseases. And we also have BioLife. This can be used for viruses as well.
Okay, let's talk about insects now. What are some chemicals that farmers can also use for insects?
For insects, we can use Delta M for most cutting insects such as worms. We can use Numectin for mites and aphids. Also, we have Carbon Max. So we have Triclan as well. That's a stomach ingesting insecticide that goes well with worms as well. Also, if the chemical is not available at the Lawrence and Parry, they can go to TDC, Home and Depot, and we have things like Caprid, that is a good insecticide, also Protector as well. So each insecticide is classified into two. We have contact that goes directly on the insect and kills it, and systemic enters the system of the insect, and it takes a little time, but it's much effective as well.
Okay, in terms of early detection, let's use, we could state one insect, and then you could say, how can a farmer notice that they're being affected by this insect? And then we could state one disease, and we could ask, how can farmer identify they're affected by this disease? So let's start with insects.
Insects, for early detection phase, we try to let farmers have some sort of sticky trap that provides as a monitoring tool. And once they see that sticky trap have on some insects, for instance, let us use aphids.
Okay.
Once you have aphids, it have a similar symptoms as crinkling of the leaves, curling of the leaves. You see a kind of white, a kind of shininess to the leaves. This is honeydew, and it's a sweet sap. And this sometimes when the air blows on the honeydew, it forms a black moth called sooty mole, and that is a classic symptom. As for the aphids, it's a small Some of them are green, some of them are pale yellow, some are black, and it's depending on the species of plant it's feeding on.
I'm glad you made mention of that, because I was going to ask, for persons who don't know what aphids looks like, describe them. Okay, let's dive into a disease. What disease, for example, can a farmer look for?
One disease that is very prevalent in this rainy season is powdery mildew. Powdery mildew, you see some, a healthy leaf is typically green. So once it's infected by this disease, you start to see white bodies, fungal bodies forming around the leaves. So it starts from the top and then it goes to the underneath of the leaf, and then it starts to necrose the leaves and it eventually dies.
Okay, so for someone who might see it and they decide to touch the leaf, is there anything that they can see, some sort of residue that can be seen on their hand that could also identify it as powdery mildew?
Yes, once it's highly infested, you will just think of it as some dispose on them like baby powder, and it's have a silky feeling like powder as well.
Okay, you may mention a bit about spraying. So tell the viewers, for persons who have to spray, you may mention of some of these chemicals that they can get at the Lawrencetown Parry Agriculture Depot or TDC Home and Building Depot if we don't have any in stock.
Yes.
So is there a specific rate that these chemicals should be applied by?
Yes, when applying all pesticides, you must read the label. The labeling is very important, and also you have to get your measurements right. So if you're try to use one measurement. For instance, if you have a calibration of teaspoon and the label say milliliters, you just convert it over to milliliters, and that you'll get a more accurate reading.
Okay. So for farmers who spray, or viewers who don't know and who are interested in spraying, what are the protective gears and clothing they need to wear?
Yes, so there are a list of clothing that you need to wear. First, you need your hat to cover your head, goggles to protect your eyes, respirator to prevent you from inhaling the fumes. Also, you need your gloves, your coverall to protect your body, and rubber boots. So those are things that are very, very important. And the protective clothing must be something that is breathable.
Okay. And then after spraying now, how do you break it down? How do you take, which gear you take off first to the last piece?
All right, so you try to take off from bottom, go up.
Okay.
So you start with your rubber boots, put them on one side, you remove your coverall, then remove your mask and your gloves. When you're removing your mask, you rinse it out immediately with warm water.
Okay. Is there any last thing you want to include here now to tell viewers and farmers what they should put in place, look for, and also be mindful of during the rainy season?
Yeah, so the biggest thing that all farmers and backyard farmers need to know is first identifying your problem. Once you identify your problem, things will be becoming easier. And if you're having problems identifying your problem, you can come to us at the Department of Agriculture, and we'll be able to assist you and give you guidance on the up and coming rainy season.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Bat, for joining us, and do continue to enjoy and keep up your good work.
Yes, yes.
All right. And there you have it, viewers. Another episode of On the Farm. We're vocal about everything local. Just to recap this episode, we spoke to Ms. Heidi Tyson, a Senior Agriculture Officer here in the Department of Agriculture, where she spoke about a few things that farmers should do during this time as preventative measures and protective measures for their crops. And also we had Mr. Quincy Bat, the Quarantine Officer, who would have outlined some diseases, insects, pests that you can find during this time, some mitigation methods, whether it be chemical, organic practices, and so forth, and how you can put on your gears for spraying, take off the gears properly for spraying. Until next time, I am Shakima Hanley. Bye.